in an organization, all problems are leadership problems, I would say. But the point is, some people are hard to deal with and they won't change. And you cannot change them. You can only change yourself. If you're sitting in a complicated negotiations, how do you know they're not playing you?
Yeah.
So the best way to understand another human being, do you know what that is?
Well, Thomas, thank you for coming on today. I dove into this book, Surrounded by Idiots, which, first of all, I love the title. And I actually want to dive into, after I do an introduction here, about how you came up with this one. But thank you for taking the time to come on today.
Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
The book here, Surrounded by Idiots, can give a lot of people that are either managers or are managing people, or they're owners of companies, can really help them dial down and be a better manager or owner. And so let me do a quick introduction first. So I've got Thomas Erikson. He's a renowned author of the worldwide best-selling series Surrounded by, such as Surrounded by Idiots, Surrounded by Energy Vampires, Surrounded by Bad Bosses, Surrounded by Liars. And you've got 15 books total. So you started this pretty young. And they're all enjoyable. Thomas is a Swedish behavioral expert, active lecturer, best-selling author, and the visionary behind a groundbreaking model that simplifies human behavior into 4 vivid colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. On the Surrounded by Idiots, I kind of love the story that you told about how you're talking with a CEO and you're walking around. He goes, "Yeah, I'm surrounded by idiots." And you ask, who hired them? Can you kind of walk us through that story? I thought that was pretty entertaining.
I think you kind of gave the punchline away
Yeah, I
there, but
did.
it was
I'm not a good storyteller.
but it is a great story. This is many years ago. I was quite new as a management consultant, early 30s something. I don't even remember. And he pointed out idiots here, idiots there, idiots everywhere. And when you hear this, it has a sort of a funny ring to it after a while. Isn't he actually listening to himself? And I had to ask the obvious question: do you really mean that they are idiots? Are you actually called? Yeah, sure. So do you have any examples? Sure, Department A over there, morons, idiots, weirdos. Department B over there, no one can answer a straight question. Department C, don't even get me started. And the only thing I could come up with was you're smart when you're young, right? So I had to ask him, who brought in all the idiots? He stood up, red-faced, and kicked me out, well, verbally. Meeting's over, get out. I got a second meeting, and the second time he started the conversation, this time I have not forgotten the rifle in the car. That's how we sort of learned how to, get along very slowly, but a bit surely. So that's a great story, but it put me on track. And of course, the phrase surrounded by it's not unique. We all been in those meetings, right? You sit around a table, you put your phone on the table. Some of you have two, and you sit around. There's an agenda. You walk around the table, and what's new? What do you got? Everything, and you try to look at the agenda, and you realize after a while no one is following the agenda. Now, what are these people talking about? And when you leave the room, the only thing you can think of is, what is wrong with these people? We all been in those meetings, and sometimes you feel surrounded by idiots. However, we can just lay the baseline here. Some people seems to be surrounded by more idiots than others. That's interesting. Some people are idiot magnets who draws weirdos and lunatics to themselves. Why is that? That's strange.
When you're consulting, and I know we own a few companies, and so it's not uncommon for a manager to say that very thing. And I do think, I mean, this is where your book was such an eye opener, in that it's, first of all, we got to look in the mirror first, right? That's where I think we probably all need to start, and then really understand, what personalities these people have, and that's why I think this is so key. Now, as far as, I think, let's start by breaking down the 4 colors, if you can, right off the bat.
Sure. I mean, firstly, this is the old disc profile dressed up in colors. The disc profile, I cannot take credit for that. That's an old story going back almost 100 years, where the original ideas came from William Moulton Marston, an American psychologist. who also invented the lie detector and also is the father of one of the superheroes, Wonder Woman. Actually, it's
Yeah.
weirdly enough the same guy. And but the model was created, the analysis in itself was created by Clark during the 50s. And it turned into the disk analysis. And then we added colors on top of it because of a pedagogical reason. So you have extroversion, introversion, task orientation, people orientation. So you get sort of four basic, let's say, characteristics, let's call it. But these are all within each and every human, but to a different extent. And the situation may vary as well. And the reds are extroverted and task oriented, dominant, fast forward thinkers, competitive, bam, 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 move on, life is short, we better speed up here, let's get going, bam, bam. Some people think they are harsh, maybe even a bit aggressive. And then you have the yellow factor, the other extrovert profile, but they are also people oriented. So they are happy, shiny, smiley people, Have you seen the weather? The sun is shining, and even if it's raining, the sun is always shining somewhere. So they are positive and optimistic and creative. Some of them haven't touched ground since, I don't know, late 90s or something. You have to love them. Best buddies ever. If you go to the introvert side, you get this green profile, introvert and people oriented, looking for stability, steadiness, calm, caring, sharing, very much for the team. The team is everything. The team can be, the company, it could be in the organization, it could be just my tiny group in this room here. It could be you and I, it could be the family, it could be the football team or the canoe club. The canoe club, it could be that. They don't like conflict. They are very conflict avert, so they will just say yes to everything, not to stir things up, which of course puts them in conflict at the end of the day, obviously. And they also were very not very keen on changes. Changes. It was better before. Well, maybe it wasn't better before, but it's worse now, right? So those people, and then you have, I say people, but it's a type within
Sure.
each and every one of us. Better be clear on that. And the last one, the analytical types, the introvert, task-oriented people. Here you got yourself an engineer or a tax sheriff or, an accountant perhaps. Detail-oriented, super focused, quality, very sharp thinkers. They speak when they have something important to say. Otherwise, they have no need for talking at all. They don't hate people, but they are kind of stone-faced. Details, details, details. They can dig themselves down to the groundwater to find some more fascinating details that no one cares about. That's the blue
Sure.
trait. So those are the four basics, and they are usually mixed with an individual. And the situation might vary. You could have one profile at home and another one at your, mother-in-law, perhaps, and another one at work, and a fourth one when it comes to dealing with clients, let's say. That could absolutely be the case. But there is a basic style that you are mostly comfortable with. That's the one you should sort of try to find, because that's when you feel the best, when you don't have to violate who you really are.
Do you think as we age, we probably or evolve, we might, when we're in our 20s, you're a solid red, maybe leaning a little bit more toward another color, but then you start having some success and making money, you might go into slightly into another color. Or do you see that evolution in people?
Yes and no. That's a really interesting question. But here's the thing. That's probably not about the colors, because the colors only describe someone's behaviors. This is not personalities. Personalities are sort of hiding beneath the surface. You try to
Mm.
figure out the personality by observing the behaviors. I'm sorry for being a bit technical here, but psychologists usually correct me. Well, it's not a personality test, and it is, and that's actually true. But what changes over time, you can go through, your colors usually don't change over time. My colors have changed a little bit since I was 24, but I've been working on me for over 30 years now because I had to, because I messed up too often. So I just had to get a grip on myself. But if you don't deliberately try to sort of squeeze yourself into a certain direction or something, you will be about the same. What can change is your drivers, which is beneath the surface. Those are the answer to the question why. Because you mentioned a good example. If you sort of make a career, you build a business, you sell it, you make a lot of money, fine. Now you're financially free. Wow. Are you still sort of, the hunter type? Maybe not. Maybe you will go into philanthropy or whatever, growing roses in your garden, because you don't need to be driven for financial security anymore. But it's more about interest, or what motivates you, than it is when you how you behave. There's a good example. One of the most read people in the history of human beings are Mother Teresa, if you remember her.
Mhm.
She was fighting like mad for the poor,
Mhm.
in a very red manner, dominant, not very nice to be around, not very, she could be quite rude actually, but she did it for a good purpose because she had something called a social driver. She wanted to, I had a CEO like that many years ago. He said, you look tired, you better go home immediately, a bit bullish, dominant, but for a good cause. And these things can change. Your focus might change, but your behaviors usually don't change actually.
Yeah. I think, the a really big takeaway I got from this was, as a manager or a business owner, identifying these colors or these people, um, and understanding what color they are can really help with my management style or my manager's management style. Can you walk us through how to identify somebody, their color?
Well, I'll do my very best. No, when it comes to leadership, there is no way to say. A lot of people say, okay, red people, those must be the best leaders, right? Maybe, but then again, maybe not, because they are maybe natural born, let's say, managers. They want to lead people. That is not the same thing as saying they are the best leaders. Again, you have to be a bit critical about this, but they stand up in the middle of the crowd. They sort of, they have sharper elbows. They can sort of, if you don't like them, they can live with that. They understand it's lonely at the top. Fine, whatever. So they sort of rise through the hierarchies, very often up to the center, and to the middle, and to the top of the pyramid, actually, because they are in a way tougher than the rest of us. Is this the same thing as leadership? It could be. It could be. It depends. There's no way to say. I know I'm not answering your question straight away. I hear myself talking here,
You're
but
quite all
the thing is
right.
this: you can recognize the red leader by their clear message. Do this, don't do that, shut up and come back and report.
Mhm.
That's how they do it. A yellow leader, he will try to motivate you and flatter you and charm you and try to make you things you don't want to do. But they are also the poorest listeners on the planet. They don't hear anything. They actually don't only hear their own thoughts, and they speak better than they listen. So you will never sort of get a chance to tell your story in the presence of a really yellow leader. They can be good leaders if you need a visionary thinker. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need someone to inspire you. So that's when you need the yellow leaders. The red leaders you need when the times are going rough. When things are going sideways, you need someone to stand up and say, "Okay, let's fight." Okay, I saw that. But anyways, you need someone who is kind of, like this. But sometimes that's not what you need. Yellow people you don't need when you are looking for order and precision and detail orientation. That's when you go for the blue leader. You need someone who are in full control, who can report and analyze the data, and who sort of can give you an exact pathway towards success, who can hand you the manual. This is how you do it, and then we'll come back to you every Monday morning. How did it go? Tell me your story. And they will never miss, ever. They won't inspire you, on the other hand, but they will actually be very, very sharp when it comes to solving problems, let's say. The green leaders, you recognize them by they are being very friendly and very kind. They bring you coffee when they drink coffee. They ask if they can, drive you to the service garage if you have to pick up your car. They ask you about your family, about your dogs and your cat and your neighbors and everything. They really show interest in you as an individual. And if you need that in the leadership, those are the ones you're going to look for. On the other hand, if it's quite messy and maybe the team is in conflict and the times are bad, they won't be very useful because they are a little bit weak when it comes to, taking the fight, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So each and every of these styles, and again, they're usually a combination. I know I'm coming back to that, but it's important to remember. I think so. Each and every one of these styles have its place, but nothing works all the time. It's like the gears in your car. You can start if you have a manual car, which I have. You can start on the first gear, on the second gear, but you can't start on the fifth or the sixth. But you can't use number one or two on the highway. You have to, switch gears sometimes. So it depends on the context, really. So
Right.
it's a sort of a complicated answer. What was the question again?
I was so busy listening. Um, about the shoot, I don't remember what it was. I think it was about the colors and
How do you
um,
recognize your boss's color?
yeah, you
Well, I gave you
recognize
some.
your boss recognizing your employees' colors.
It's the same way. It's just the other
Yeah.
way around. Just observe people, sit down. If you want to be good at dealing with people, go green. What does a green person do? He is quite relatively quiet, and he is a good listener. That's a good way to start a new relationship professionally or otherwise as well. Just sit down, lean backwards, and just pay attention and see what is going on here. Observe the other individual. Try to make some notes. Okay, he's speaking like this, he's answering like that. What about his body language? You can do a lot of things, and the book is full of them. You can do a lot of things to actually learn how to interpret another individual. So you can sort of put the pieces together, but you have to be a little bit observant and also aware that you will filter all you see through your own layers of perception, your own biases and prejudice. If you are, let's say, a relation oriented person and you meet someone who is task oriented, you will feel their disinterest of you as an individual. They will never ask you, how are you? And what about your holidays? What did you do? Did you buy a boat? Is that your cat on the table there? They won't ask you because it's not that they don't care, but they are not super interested at work about you. You know, are you bringing in new business? That's interesting. And sometimes you will react on this, just as the task-oriented people will react on your sort of buddy-ish kind of presence. Hey, how's it going? Whoa, tell me about your weekend. What are you doing? I'm here to work. Why are you here? That doesn't work at all. So these things matter when you sort of try to figure people out.
Yeah.
So the best way to understand another human being, do you know what that is?
What's that?
Start with yourself. Self-awareness is the key to this.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
I think that's where it all has to kind of begin, right?
Absolutely so. Where are you located
I'm in
geographically?
Los Angeles. I think a lot of what you're talking about, I'm in commercial real estate. We have a commercial real estate brokerage company in Los Angeles. And a lot of what you're talking about can work for when you're having meetings with clients too, because I think it's so important when you go in and meet somebody, understanding what color they would fall into, and then you have to react accordingly.
No, the thing is this: if I was calling my travel agency, not that we do that anymore, but for the sake of argument, I called them up and said, "Hey, get me a ticket to Los Angeles, will you?" They will say, "No problem." And then they will say, "For where would you like to go?" Just imagine I said, "Never mind that. Don't be so problem oriented. Just get me the ticket." How will they solve it? Answer, they won't, because that's an impossible task. You always need two dots on the map that you should connect. That's the way with physical communication. It's the same thing with verbal or non-verbal even communication. You need to know the starting point in any dialogue. You are always the starting point.
Right.
That's never going to change. So if you don't know where you are, in which direction are you going? My flight to Los Angeles will be very different if I went from Stockholm, my nearest airport, or if I went from Canberra in Australia. Very different route. Same thing
Absolutely.
with people. If you meet a yellow guy, Joe, you meet a yellow guy, and you think, okay, I'm gonna adapt to this person now. What about speed? What about tempo? We all have a certain kind of pace in our bodies, right? We speak in a certain pace, we think in a certain pace, we act in a certain pace. So you think, I'm going to adjust to this individual. Now, the question is, are you going to speed up or are you actually going to slow down? It depends on who you are. If you're red, you have to slow down in order to sort of pace them. But if you're green or blue, you need to speed up. And if you don't know who you are, how are you going to know how to adapt to this individual and make close the best deal? Because it's about pacing them, actually.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Make sense?
And don't you get a lot of it when you're trying to put somebody to a color, I guess, is when you sit down with them, let's say you're going into a pitch meeting for an investment property, active listening, body language, shouldn't you be looking for all that to kind of get an idea of what they are?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gather information.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Pay attention and look for certain signs, but also be aware that what you usually would like to do is to find what we call a baseline. You would like to know what is this person originally like, because everyone is playing a game. If you're sitting in a complicated negotiations, how do you know they're not playing you? Is this the real individual? Who is this? It's really hard to tell after just one meeting, because professionals, especially people in sales and skilled negotiators, they know how to do this. They know how to hide their true selves. I can hide. I can play any color because I've been practicing this for 30 years. I could trick a lot of people, but probably not for too long. Probably not in the seventh meeting. Then I will sort of go back to being me again. It's like with any relationship. A man and a woman is dating. Everyone is on their best behavior. They move in together. They fall in love. They move in together. And slowly but surely, they will sort of transform back to who they really are, right?
Mhm.
And that's when the quarreling starts. So we've seen this like a million
It's
times.
true love, Thomas. It's true love, man. No
Of course it
quarreling.
is. Yeah, I totally misunderstood the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm married for the third time. So what do I know? I know everything what doesn't work because I tried it all.
Yeah.
So my wife Christina and I, we talk a lot about we communicate about our communication, actually, which is a fantastic thing. Going full red now, I tell her, because she's red. Well, 98% red. No yellow, no green, no blue, no nothing, only red. And a little bit furious, didn't I get 100%? Why did I want to get a 90? It's a stupid test. I want to do it again. And I said, it's not a competition. Oh, everything is a competition. For her, everything is competition. But we can laugh about that. But I said, hey, sit down and relax. Oh, that's boring. So,
Yeah.
anyways, back to you.
So your wife is red, then what are you?
I am also quite red, but not as red as her. I am also very blue. I have a high blue, high red bar. Is this mirrored? High red bar, high blue bar, 82, 82. You can get
Wow.
100 on each and every bar. And then I have quite a lot of yellow and no green whatsoever. I'm very sorry. I blame it on my mother's side. They took all the green. So
I got you. Um, let's talk about teams and the mix of personalities or colors in teams. What do you think is the ideal team? You can't have a bunch of reds.
you can. I've seen those teams,
Yeah,
loud teams, a lot of arm wrestling and so on, but they don't care because the conflict is just another way of communicating, right? They
right.
don't care about yelling and shouting or anger. They don't need any anger management. I'm not angry. That's how it
Yeah.
sounds. I'm not screaming. I'm not yelling. I've seen so many interesting. You can have a red team. You can have a yellow team also. It's going to be, it's going to be so creative and so great. No one's going to find the papers and they forget about the task, but they have a great time all the time. Only green teams. Well, who's going to be in charge? Is
Mm,
it you? Is it me? Who am I to tell you what? No, no, no. You better. You decide. You decide. Oh, so you're fine with me deciding? Well, not really, but I'm going to go with you because otherwise it's going to be a conflict. So everyone's going to agree and no one's going to do what they're told because I didn't like it to begin with. Blue teams could be good when it comes to quality, but they will plan themselves into the year 3000. That's my
yeah.
greatest concern there. I would say, you know, When it comes to sales, you find a lot of yellow people, and the reason for that is they are very charming, they are very delightful to be around. They usually know how to deal with people. They are the people's people, let's say, the people's people. Yes, they are very influential and very inspiring. People usually like them. They smile a lot, you know. They have this great positive persona that feels good to be around. So when it comes to doing business, you find a lot of yellow people, as you find a lot of red people in the management, especially in the top management. That is usually the case. You find a lot of blue people when it comes to keeping things in check, you know, and in order. You find a lot of people when it comes to service management. Sorry, green people, service industries. You have about 47% of mostly green people in the industrialized world, and we have a lot of data to support this. 50 million analysis, something like that. So we have quite a good foundation for knowing this. But you only have 9.5% red. So you can't create three teams. If you have a team of 12, you can't have three reds, three yellows, three greens, and three blues, because that's not what the population looks like. So you will usually deal with some sort of, it's going to tilt in one way or another. And the team usually tilts in the direction of the team leader, if that's the recruiting officer, let's say. It's very easy for you. I'm not putting words in your mouth here at all, but it's easy for you to recruit red people because you will recognize them. And they will recognize you. You will sort of feel the same need for urgency and all these things, you know. Good person, he's like me, he must be good, you know. Same thing with yellows, greens, and blues. That's a fact. I've seen this, I don't know how many times. However, you are already pointing in this direction. Diversity when it comes to behaviors and even personalities is a good thing because you get different perspectives. When it comes to problem solving, someone is saying, okay, this is a problem. And someone says, okay, who's going to solve the problem? Let's have a discussion. So you look at the same problem from many different angles if you have different types of people in there. So you need reds, yellows, greens, and blue, at least one or two of each, but it's not going to be a perfect, balance. That's usually not happening. What you don't want is only extroverts, meaning only reds and yellows, or only introverts, meaning only greens and blues, because that's going to be very complicated because they share the same energies and the same perception of what is going on. So one will be very passive and one will be maybe too active, not figuring things out, not going to the bottom of things. And the introverts might never sort of leaving the starting blocks at all because let's talk a little bit more. So you really want to balance this over these two fields, let's call them. And that can be very tricky because you also need to consider experience and certain skills and competences, of course. But if you have a gap to fill, you're looking for someone who can do X, Y, and Z, and you have another extrovert, let's say, the ninth extrovert out of 10, and then you have an introvert, maybe you should go for the introvert. This is just an example for everyone listening. It is just an example, nothing but an example. I've made it up. Maybe to find some kind of balance in the team, it will add something new into the group. That can be very fruitful. The best team has all the colors in it at the same time, but it puts a certain kind of pressure on the team leader. He or she must be able to deal with all the types, and very often at the same time during the same meeting. People listening in on like 8 different frequencies. So you need to message whatever you have to fine tune your message so that everyone is listening at least to what they should listen to. You need to be quick for the reds, inspiring for the yellows, calm and protective for the greens, and detail oriented for the blues in the same meeting.
Yeah.
Still being you. So that's why leadership is so complicated. I think this is one of the reasons we have so many poor leaders in the world. Sorry, poor managers. I have a statistics just from the top of my head. Would you hear it? Would you like to hear it?
You betcha.
Say yes.
I want to hear it.
You want to hear it? I have trained about 5,000 managers in my career. I've coached about 1,200 people individually. according to my own experiences, 10% of the leaders are leaders. Sorry, no, wrong. 10% of the managers are good leaders, really good people. Really good, inspiring and competent, and open for feedback and all of these things. Good, powerful, honest leaders, the ones that you want to follow. Then you have 70% managers who you need to follow because they sort of is in this spot in the organizational chart. But they are sort of, yeah, average. Then you have 20% at the bottom who are so bad, so poor. These are the bosses. These are the bullies and the narcissists and the half psychopaths who shouldn't be able to. You should take away their keys and kick them out and never to be seen again. Never allow them over your threshold once more, because these people are bad for you and for everyone around you. 2 out of 10 are like those, I would say. That's bad enough, right?
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that kind of number. If you've done all this consulting, if you had to build the perfect team right now, what would it look like? If you were let's say you own a company and you need to build a perfect sales team. You're launching a new brokerage company. You're like, okay, I'm going to build the perfect team. What would that look like?
I would probably hire a red and yellow team leader, someone who is an extrovert, but not too fond of details, but still driven, a fast forward thinker who doesn't forget about the team, because the yellow factor will always make them interested in people. I would look for this person's motivators, the workplace motivators. I would look for the drivers, the things that I mentioned before that lies beneath the surface, right? Which means the reason why he or she is in there in the first place. Then I would look for a combination of I would say also maybe yellow and red sales reps. I would be happy if they had some blue in them, because then they wouldn't, fiddle with, they wouldn't be sloppy or clumsy or such. They will fill in their reports and they will get back to you when they promise, and they will, be proper, and everything will be in good order. They will file stuff, be neat and tidy, but still much drive to keep on forward. Their drivers should be something that I call the practical, economical, or utilitarian economical, meaning they love money, which is the best way to hire a sales rep. Because if you are driven by money, the only thing the team leader has to do is to show them, here's the bait, here's your provision, here's your bonus, but you have to perform. If you perform, you're going to make money, right? The worst thing that you can have is a sales guy who's not interested in money.
Spot on.
Because I'm not want to, sound like a total jerk here, but it's so easy. If you're interested in money, you can give them money as long as they perform, obviously.
Right.
It's actually not super complicated. You don't want jerks and morons and idiots who who will sort of step on dead bodies in order to kick a dog in order to make a deal. No. You need decent, honest people still. But if they're driven by money, it's the easiest system to build ever. I would not hire people with a social driver who are there only to help others. It's a beautiful thing, but in sales, you are helping if you're closing deals, but people would like to make a good deal. All parts is in it for a good deal. Everybody wants to be satisfied. So we can shake hands and say, okay, I'm happy, you're happy, great. But we know it's business, right? We understand it's business. And that must be okay. This is, in my home country here in Sweden, a very unpopular view. I know you Americans are much better at this. I think you're much more professional when it comes to this. No, I'm serious. I'm trying to flatter you because I don't have to. But I think you are really good at this. You're a business oriented, and I really like that. I love to do business with Americans because you know why we are here. No one is pretending to be my best buddy. We are nice and friendly. All of that, sure, that's delightful. but we understand that this is business. So let's talk business, right? I
Right.
think that's sort of a, what's the word? Uh, it just feels great, you know, as long as it's business,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Do you think, when we start or when I started in business, coffee was for closers, get the deal done. Those were the kind of leaders that we had. You know, solid red, just get the deal done. Do you think that can work this day and age? I mean, with the evolution of management, does it really work these days?
In some places, it probably does. But these people also started to yell at people, and they were kind of harassing underperformers and so on. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the drive. That's why I said you need also some yellow in this
Yeah,
character, because if the team leader is red and yellow, he or she will not be that harsh on his people.
right,
He will also be friendly and open minded. And if you have a sick kid, it's fine because you have this human side in you. That's why I didn't say only red. That can also be great. I'm not saying you can't be only red, but there is a chance that you actually will be perceived as a little bit too hard on people, especially when things are being problematic and the road is turning bumpier every day. Uh, People tend to point with the full hand, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
right.
talking about someone who keeps his or her drive but doesn't act like some sort of bully or some sort of tyrant. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But if you're a team leader for a sales team, your job is to make your sales reps make deals. That is your position. That is what you are there to achieve. If you don't accomplish that, then you are actually in the wrong spot, actually, because we are not here to be buddies. If we are also good friends, that's a bonus. I totally respect that, but that's not why people are paying us.
Yeah,
We could be buddies at the bar afterwards. That's fine.
absolutely. To find, I mean,
You have,
isn't
you
only
have to
5?
you have to find sorry you have to find a balance here. Obviously, you
Yeah,
can't be inhumane and just some sort of a half semi dictator.
right.
But you have to keep on moving forward because it's your job, really.
Yeah. Isn't it like 80% of the population is two color? Isn't only like 5% is one color anyway? So they're pretty mixed.
True, true. And 3% or three colors, as
Yeah,
yours truly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So finding a solid red would probably be kind of hard to do in the first place. Although I do think I run into them in our business once in a while. We get some pretty difficult personalities.
Uh, I meet a lot of red people. Again, I'm married to one of them. And my wife said, there's only 9.5% people with mostly red in the profile, and only 5% who are only one color. That means 0.5% only red.
Right.
I'm pretty unique. And I say, yes, dear. Of
I
course.
bet you do.
But I know a couple of them. I know a lot of people like that, actually. They're very different depending on the drivers, really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's in our industry, we do run into difficult personalities. And you were talking about it in the book. Could you kind of touch on dealing with difficult personalities?
depends on what kind you're talking about. Are we talking about like energy vampires or psychopaths or narcissists? I've written about
Well,
all of them.
kind of
So,
all of them, but I think more energy vampires.
energy vampires. Well, the energy vampire, that's the person, you sit by your desk, you're working, you're feeling good, maybe you just closed a great deal and life is, the sun is shining and life is just great. Then the door opens and in comes that person and you think, oh no, this is not the day. Oh no, oh please, oh no, God no. That's your energy vampire. That could be anyone.
Yeah.
If you are the green person, it could be the red person. If you are the red person, it can be the green person. That is one way of looking at it. If this is your complete opposite, and we don't tick, we don't sort of we don't get along at all. We just don't. That's your energy vampire. But it can also be the drama queen in the office. jumps over through the door and ha ha, let me gather around me and I will tell you of my fantastic boat trip this Saturday morning. And do you know what happened? I met King George III. Well, maybe not King George III, but I met King what's his name? Well, anyways, well, he looked like, and it's loud and it's dramatic, it's sort of a histrionic personality trait, and it's super duper annoying after like 2.5 minutes. Most people just hate them. These are, let's say, yellow behavior on steroids. It's so dramatic and so loud and so great, and every sentence starts with I. I did this, I did that, and on it goes. That's an energy vampire, right? Yeah. Usually it's a fun guy to listen to at a party, but then you just want to grab your beer and go somewhere else. But at the office, oh, what are you going to do? But it could also be quite the opposite. It could be the control freak. Yep. The complete control freak who proofreads everything you turn in, everything you just hand them. Okay, I'm going to check for spelling errors here. You don't have to. It's AI, I will check it anyway because, I'm going to do that. They ask you a gazillion questions about absolutely nothing that matters at all. And they're never satisfied. They're never happy. They're critical. They will point out every single tiny little error ever. And they're going to annoy you like mad because, what are you going to do with them? Because they say quality matters, and you can't even argue because it does. But they're just too detail focused. It could be the office bully,
And we met those people. You deal with them by just open communication and understanding where they're coming from, and
bully.
All of them. All the difficult.
All of them.
Just through communication.
All of the above. Yes, and there are more as well. But this is of course a leadership problem. In an organization, all problems are leadership problems, I would say. And if the management doesn't deal with it, as long as the top manager isn't the energy vampire, which can also be the case, obviously. Again, one of the problems with let's say narcissism and psychopathy is that those people also rise to the top because they, like Reds, also have sharp elbows, and they will step on anyone's head in order to reach the very top. So, but they don't have to be red, but they will sort of fight over who's going to be in charge here. And these people are just evil. I use that word deliberately. They are evil. Narcissists and psychopaths are evil. There's nothing you can do about those because this is a personality disorder. Yeah. Seriously, it's like saying, "Are you colorblind? You better see colors within 2 minutes." No, they just can't because they can't. Yeah, it's just physically impossible because it's in the brain, it's in the amygdala. Never mind. But you can't change them. Some people can be dealt with giving, let's say, hands-on feedback, but it has to go the official way. The manager closest to the manager will have to deal with it. They won't listen to colleagues, but they might listen to a manager saying, I'm here to help you. I'm willing to give you a couple of chances here, but you better shape up because this isn't working at all. You're sort of ruining the collaboration within the team. No one is listening to anyone anymore because of your behavior. So if you don't change A, B, and Z and D, and maybe the whole alphabet, you're out. We can't have people like you. You're poisonous. That might sound harsh as well, and but sometimes the trend, I would say, and it's I understand why it comes. The trend is in even in the business world is everyone is wonderful and everyone is lovely, and everyone deserves a fair chance. Sure, 1, 2, maybe 3 chances. But if you don't take them, there's something wrong with you. If you don't pay attention and listen to the feedback, I'm not trying to sound like a complete idiot here. But the point is, some people are hard to deal with and they won't change. And you cannot change them. You can only change yourself, but you can never change somebody else. And if they don't want to do it, you have to act on it. Otherwise, they will ruin the whole kaboom, and they can break down anything, especially psychopathic narcissists. That's not a joke. That's
Could be a
actually
cancer within your company, right? And the good people are just get sick of it and they start leaving because you haven't removed the problem, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. And if you don't act, even though you might see a problem, it doesn't have to be a psychopath. It could be, like it could be some sort of passive aggressive person who is bitter because he didn't get promoted last year and whatever. It could be that too, you know. And but if the management doesn't deal with the problem, the manager will, you know, people will lose their respect for her or for him because what kind of leader are you? Here's a problem, everybody knows it. It's sort of a, what's the English phrase, it's like having a dead moose head on your dinner table. Everyone sees it but no one talks about it,
Right.
with horns and everything. It's lying there and everybody sees it, dead eyes and everything, but we pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And if you don't act, it's your job to actually act. Your job is to keep the team together. So if you want to keep the respect of everybody else, you deal with this problem and this problem person, because some people are problems. It's a very unpopular opinion. Everyone's got something beautiful in them, sure. I'm not talking about individual value or anything, but if you can't cope, if you can't do your job, if you're sort of harassing other people in the office, what are we going to do with you?
Yeah.
What good are you if you can't sort of be a part of the team? You don't have to love everything that you do. We don't either, but you have to at least play your part in this orchestrating sort of whatever it is we're trying to build here. And it's tricky. It's really problematic. I saw a recent report, very scary, that said seven. I'm sorry for sharing this with you. I do apologize beforehand. Seven. It came from. It wasn't Harvard, but something similar. Maybe you want to Google this afterwards, or maybe you want to edit it out. 7 out of 10 Americans hate their job, not
Oh,
dislike or have a problem getting up in the morning, but actually hate their job because something is wrong. When people leave the organization, it's 50% is bad management. The
yeah.
manager is number one cause for people leaving. It could also be they are not getting their own motivators fulfilled. They maybe they have a drive for money, they don't make any money, or they have a drive for individualistic behaviors, meaning they want to be in charge of things but no one is giving them any new responsibilities, so they are just they feel misunderstood. It's like playing golf when you want to go sailing. It's two different sports, but we will have you play golf because that's how we do it here. We play golf. But I want to go bicycling or climbing the mountains. No, we play golf here.
Sure.
You can do it a couple of times, but you're not going to love it. And how will you perform? Not very well because you don't like golf,
Right.
and so soon you're going to start to hate it. So that's bad numbers. I don't think if this is an exaggeration, but I saw this report just this fall, and it made me think. I'm going to build a new whole book on that specific report. Actually, I'm working on a new project now that is related to the drivers, to the motivational factors. Why are people feeling they are in the wrong place? And that's sometimes a cause for misbehaviors
Yeah.
within an organization, actually. But if the management understands the problem, they can deal with it. They can also just turn a blind side and say, I didn't see anything. I don't see this moose head. I see nothing. Nothing
And
to
that's
see
what
here.
most management does, don't they? They just think if I don't, it'll go away. And instead of addressing, we had a situation years ago, and it was our top producer. And he wasn't our top producer, but all of a sudden he got one client, and he made just a bunch of money. And with that came a lot of baggage, and not just he was invincible. He was the smartest person in the office. And it got to be where he was just nobody in the office wanted to be around him. And so we had the difficult decision of what do we do now? And we knew the answer. He had to go.
I mean, he got cocky. That's what you say.
Very, very cocky,
Very,
and was just
very cocky.
arrogant in the office. We'd have office meetings, and he'd have opinions, and you're like, no, you're not. You're way off base. But and it really started ruining our office. And so we ended up asking him to leave, which asking your top producer to leave is kind of a hard pill to swallow. But, you know, as far as a management decision, is the best one we ever made, because everybody else in the office was in the office working more together. They had more cohesive team, and they all started producing. And so in the end, we ended up doing better. But it was a
Makes perfect.
difficult decision.
That's a great. That's sorry for interrupting. That's a great example because, as you said, it's a really tough decision, and you probably thought it over and have a couple of bad nights sleep because
Yeah.
before you made up your mind how many of you were interacting on this. I don't know, but it's a good example of dealing with something, and also taking this, making this decision that doesn't look rational at all, really, on paper. But in reality, it was probably the best you did. And as you said, the team started to working together because and that's kind of what we have to do all the time. We have to look at the bigger picture. Sounds like a bloody cliche, I know that, but we have to look at the bigger picture. We have 11 disgruntled staff members and one top performer. Is this good? Of course it isn't.
Yeah.
Of course it's bad. Let's deal with it. And you did. Congrats. Well done, really.
It was a tough decision, but it had to be made. But so what's next for you, Thomas? What are we doing? What's the next book?
Next book, I don't know. I don't have a title. I can't tell you because for legal reasons, I have American agents these days, and you got a lot of lawyers, guys.
We got a lot of everything.
That's true. That is so true. No, that's I can't tell, but it's going to be about why we are here in a way. The context is going to be probably focused mostly on the workplace. And it's going to be about how you actually find your spot in life, but it's not going to be some hallelujah, sit down and think and drink green tea. No, it's going to be if you understand your true inner drive, if you know what actually makes you tick, really, if you know what that is, then you can look for that instead of looking for fancy positions and great paychecks, because you will be miserable if you end up in the wrong place. It doesn't really matter how much money you're going to make. If it's for the wrong reason, you will suffer. You will suffer anyways. So I'm going to sort of break down the reasons why that is, and of course lay out a crystal clear plan for how we can get away from it, so people can be put in the right places, so we can take this 7 out of 10 haters down to 2, 1.5
Yeah.
perhaps. That's my goal, and I think I'm onto something. The
There you
response
go.
has been
Surrounded by
great.
something or other is what it's going to be.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. I also have to renew myself every 10 years or something. So we'll see what it's going to be
Oh,
called. I
okay.
don't know. We don't have a title yet, but I'm working on it. I'm also working on a workbook that you can use after you have been reading Surrounded by Idiots. When you
Yep.
read this, there's going to be a workbook that you can sort of use at the workplace. Say, okay, let's do a couple of pages to remind ourselves. It could be a kickoff, could be, after work, anything, just have a great time and talking about, who are you and who are me, who am I, and why is that? Why those loud voices down over in the kitchen there? Well, it's a green guy yelling. How could that happen? They never yell. We'll have to, let's look in the book. Oh, that's an example. That's going to be a great thing to do. It's going to come a business edition also of the book. Real. Oh yes, there's a 10 years anniversary edition coming of Surrounded by It. It's not going to be called that. It's going to be in English. Going to be called a revised, expanded edition something.
Okay.
Because it came in English 2019, but in Swedish in 2014. So
Okay.
the book is actually 10 years old. That's on the checklist for me.
All right.
It's done. It's published here. You're gonna get it in, I think, in October.
Okay.
It's
And you
gonna
have
be
a
a bit of
website as
longer
well
book.
too, right?
Yeah, surroundedbyidiots.com.
I'm going to put that in the down below too. I'm going to put Surrounded by Idiots up. It's going to be on the Joe Killinger website, so people are going to be able to go in and find the book there if they when they want to read it. Because I think after watching this, they're going to want to read it, because I just think as a manager or owner of a company, it's critical reading. It's critical reading if you want to be a better manager.
Absolutely, absolutely. I read a lot myself. I read, I don't know, 70, 80 books per year. Maybe I'm not from cover to cover, but I read a lot. Well, as an author, I have to. But also, I'm a business manager myself. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a lecturer. I need to gather information all the time. YouTube is great, but I love reading. I like to read.
Me too.
I like to gather information, this sort of a slower tempo, let's say. I really like that. Slower tempo. Is that a word?
Tempo, yeah.
I can use that, right.
But all right, Thomas. Well, thank you very, very
Thank you.
much for this. I will make sure that your website is published down below. I'm going to make sure the book is on the Joe Killinger website, joekillinger.co. I hope when you get your next book, let's get you back on here and talk about it. Okay.
Sure thing. You know where to find me.
I appreciate you and all the writing that you've done. And for those of you watching, if you could, first of all, thank you for tuning in today. If you could, please give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.